Okay, let's dive in. When we build really complex things, think skyscrapers, microchips, maybe even huge stage shows, we don't just hope for the best, right? We use blueprints
Hmm.
based on, actual laws of physics or engineering.
Right. There's a plan, a structure based on known principles.
Exactly. But here's the puzzle we're looking at today. Why is it that when we try to build the most complex systems imaginable, things like governments, big organizations, entire nations, we often seem to ditch the blueprints? We rely on politics or personality instead of, well, structural engineering.
It's a really interesting question. And what the materials we're looking at suggest is that actually a blueprint does exist for these complex systems too. It's kind of embedded in reality itself. It's called the Universal Law of Increasing Complexity, ULIC for short.
ULIC, okay.
And this law basically says that for any system to actually last, to thrive, it needs to balance three core things: energy, structure, and direction
Yeah.
dynamically.
Okay, let's unpack that triad because
Yeah.
this feels, absolutely foundational. Energy, that's the go, the resources, the people, the money.
Yeah, the capacity for action.
Structure, that's the how.
Ah,
The institutions, the rules, the ministries, the framework itself.
the form it takes, yes.
And direction, that's the why or where, the purpose, the goals,
Yeah.
the guiding story.
Exactly. But the real elegance, I think, is how that triad stays stable. It's not automatic. Each of those three, energy, structure, direction, needs constant support from 5 essential ongoing processes or complexities. Lose one, and the whole thing starts to decay.
Right. Okay. So
Yeah.
we need to know these 5 supporting complexities. This is where the map, the blueprint, really starts to take shape, isn't it? What are they?
Think of them almost like the operating system for the nation or any complex system. They are
Yeah.
value flow, that's basically the economy, how value is exchanged.
Makes sense?
Then coordination, that's governance, how interactions are managed. Continuity, that's about endurance, resilience, defense, keeping things going.
Right.
Fourth is Baruchel.
Yeah.
It's the why, the motivation, the culture. And finally, learning how the system adapts, improves, grows.
So you've got the main 3, energy, structure, direction. And then these 5 supporting functions: value flow, coordination, continuity, meaning, learning. If you overlay them, you don't just get 3 things or 5 things, you get this grid.
A matrix, exactly. 15 ongoing interdependent relationships. That's the 3x5 geometry of alignment.
15 relationships.
Yeah.
And the health of those relationships determines everything. Whether the system works, finds coherence, or just grinds itself down with internal conflict.
That's the core idea. It becomes friction instead of flow. And our mission today is to see how this model plays out at a national level. We're diving into the case of Prime Minister Emmanuel Cato, how he took this 3x5 blueprint and used it to try and fundamentally redesign his nation's coherence.
Right. So PM Cato.
Yeah.
The background is he inherited a country with, well, tons of potential, right? But it was completely fragmented. The energy, the people were there, but kind of disillusioned. The structure, all the government ministries, they existed, but they were stuck in their own silos, not talking to each
That
other.
of bureaucratic silos, yeah.
And the direction. Well, they had slogans, reform promises, but they felt hollow. So instead of things flowing smoothly, you just had blockage, friction everywhere.
And Cato's first instinct, which is, frankly, the classic mistake leaders make everywhere.
What was it?
He thought control was the answer. He thought if he just reorganized things enough, launched enough big programs from the top down, issued enough directives, that he could force coherence through oversight and, sheer political will.
Like trying to fix a plumbing problem by just turning the water pressure way up.
Exactly. And what happened? The system just pushed back, not necessarily because people were lazy or corrupt, though that might exist anywhere, but because the fundamental design was misaligned. He was trying to force energy through a system that wasn't built for smooth flow.
So the pipes were clogged, basically.
You could say that. His big breakthrough, according to these notes, was realizing that real management isn't about top-down control or just pushing energy harder. It's about discipline. It's the discipline of keeping those 15 relationships in balance. A nation, like any living system that lasts, needs coherence, not just control. You have to constantly balance the energy, structure, direction triad using those 5 complexities to keep it adapting and healthy.
Okay, so this is where it gets practical. He didn't just have this insight and write a memo. He put it into action with something called alignment sessions. That sounds potentially painful, getting all these competing ministry heads in one room.
Yeah.
Did the materials mention how that went initially? Any pushback?
Oh, absolutely. There is pushback. But the interesting thing is the framework itself kind of forced the solution. Instead of everyone coming in to fight for their budget slice, they were brought together, economists, educators, engineers, you name it, and they had to learn the shared language, the language of the 3x5 matrix.
So the focus shifted.
Completely. They weren't there to defend their turf anymore. They were there to discuss the health of the whole system using this shared map.
Yeah.
That changes the conversation fundamentally.
It moves from fighting over resources to diagnosing the system's problems together. And that leads us to what sounds like the framework's real superpower: diagnosis.
It's an incredibly powerful diagnostic tool. Cato started to see that every policy failure, a big infrastructure project stalling, chronic traffic jams, unemployment figures not improving, wasn't just an isolated screw-up by one ministry.
Right, not just blaming the Ministry of Transport or the Ministry of Labor.
Exactly. He saw it as a symptom of a deeper blockage, a constraint, within one or more of those 15 specific relationships in the matrix.
Okay, can you give a specific example? How did that diagnostic process work in practice?
Sure. The case study mentions the education system. It was failing to produce graduates with the technical skills the economy actually needed, even though they were spending a lot on education.
A familiar story in many places.
Very. And the usual blame game started. Education blamed finance for budget cuts. Labor blamed the technical colleges.
Classic turf war. Everyone pointing fingers.
Precisely. But when they applied the 3x5 lens, the real constraint showed up. It wasn't just about money. The breakdown was between value flow, what the industries actually needed, and the learning complexity within the education structure. That relationship was broken.
Ah, so the diagnosis wasn't not enough budget. It was learning isn't connected to value flow.
Exactly. And suddenly the solution becomes clearer. It wasn't about just throwing more money at it. It was about mandating direct, continuous feedback loops between industry leaders and the people designing the curriculum, fixing that specific relationship, treating the constraint as a signal, restoring the flow, often without needing massive new budgets or bureaucracies.
That's a huge shift. It makes leadership about pattern recognition, not
Yeah.
just fault finding. But for that to work, especially in a place that was already fragmented and maybe cynical, you'd need a massive amount of trust, wouldn't you?
Absolutely. And this is where the moral dimension of the framework really kicks in. Transparency became the key. It wasn't just a buzzword. It became the visible, tangible symbol of moral trustworthiness. By publishing government financial data, development project, progress, all of it openly, and making sure it was actually understandable to regular people, this did more than just reduce opportunities for corruption, although it did that too.
It changed how people felt about the system.
Fundamentally, it changed the perception of fairness. That feeling, that the system isn't rigged against you, that when you put in effort, you can see the results. That feeling started to turn deep-seated public cynicism into actual lasting motivation. It boosted the energy aspect.
That makes sense. And what about the people inside the government, the officials, the leaders?
For them, the 3x5 framework offered something else: cognitive relief. Seriously. Instead of drowning in hundreds of competing goals and metrics from different ministries.
Which must be overwhelming.
Totally. They now had a single, coherent map. They only needed to focus on managing the health of 15 core relationships. It made incredible complexity feel manageable. The clarity itself was a huge win.
Clarity reduces friction. Okay, let's move to the direction part of the triad. Cato didn't just want people to follow the rules, did he? He tapped into something deeper: meaning.
Yes, he understood that meaning is the real engine of direction. Policies weren't just presented as things you have to do. They were framed as expressions of national dignity, of collective purpose. The goal was to shift from grudging compliance to intrinsic motivation, people acting because they felt they belonged to the project.
But meaning can be pretty vague. How do they make it concrete? How do you operationalize something like national dignity?
That's key. You have to anchor it. The research shows they use 3 specific anchors to turn culture from like a nice-to-have ornament into a practical compass for the system.
Okay, what were the 3 anchors?
1, shared values. These weren't just platitudes. They were clearly defined principles about what the society held sacred. This directly shaped ethics, behavior, what was considered right and wrong.
Okay, bedrock principles.
2, vision. A clear picture of the nation's desired future. What are we trying to become together? That gives direction.
The destination.
And 3, mission. This translates the high-level values and vision into everyday action. What do we actually do tomorrow? How does this affect policy decisions, individual conduct? Meaning had to be disciplined into these three operational forms to have a real impact.
Values, vision, mission. Got it. This structured approach to direction then leads to probably the boldest structural move mentioned, creating a ministry of coherence. Now, wait a second. A ministry of coherence. What does that even do? Isn't that just adding another layer of bureaucracy? Or worse, like an internal police force watching other ministries? That sounds potentially problematic.
It does sound a bit abstract or even ominous at first glance, but its design was apparently quite clever. Its specific mandate was not to govern citizens. It wasn't delivering services like health or education.
So what was its job?
Its sole function was to align the internal structure of governance itself. Think of it as the government's own internal quality control, or maybe it's a system architect, a meta-ministry focused only on the health of the overall system.
So it was the guardian of the 3x5 blueprint.
That's a great way to put it. Its core job was supervising those 15 critical relationships across the entire government. It watched the value flow, the coordination, the learning, the meaning, across all the traditional ministries.
And did it have teeth? Could it actually intervene?
Yes. Its role was to ensure that any new policy, any major reform, actually supported the overall national mission, the agreed vision, rather than just serving one ministry's interests or competing for resources. It operated under one strict principle. When coherence breaks down anywhere, prosperity weakens everywhere.
So it's constantly scanning for those potential breakdowns in the 15 relationships. It's about prevention, not just reacting after things go wrong.
Exactly. Proactive system health maintenance.
And the materials say this structure actually outlasted Cato himself. It didn't just collapse when he left office.
That's right. The key to its longevity, apparently, was embedding the principles in something called the Founder Shared Story. This wasn't just some dusty historical document. It was a living, structured narrative about the nation's core identity, its values, vision, mission.
How was it kept alive?
It was actively taught and studied by everyone from school kids right up to the senior policymakers. It became the constant reference point, the standard against which current actions and policies were measured. It essentially institutionalized the idea of coherence, making it part of the national DNA, independent of who was in charge at any given moment.
Okay, so wrapping this up, what does this whole case study mean for you, the listener, trying to make sense of complexity in your own world, maybe your company, your team? For Cato's nation, the results mentioned, exports up, investment increasing, corruption down, those are great. But the real story isn't just those numbers.
No, those are outcomes, consequences. As Cato himself realized, they weren't the root cause of the success. The deeper win was transforming the government itself into a system that could learn, adapt, and self-correct. It became resilient.
So the core lesson isn't about Cato's specific policies necessarily.
I don't think so. It's broader. It suggests that real, lasting stability, the kind that endures for generations, doesn't come from powerful leaders imposing control. It comes from moral continuity, that shared story, the values combined with structural integrity, keeping that energy, structure, direction triad balanced through those 5 supporting functions.
When you get that right, prosperity isn't just luck anymore.
It becomes the system's natural tendency, its rhythm. It shifts from hoping for success to actually engineering the conditions for it. It's proof, maybe, that you can apply a kind of geometric precision to building the systems that shape human lives.
From hope to blueprint.
Which leaves us with a final thought for you to chew on. If lasting success depends on a structure designed for coherence and renewal, how does your own environment stack up? Think about your company, your team, maybe even your family dynamics. Look through that 3x5 lens. Where are those 15 relationships healthy and where are they strained? Where is your value flow blocked? Is your shared meaning clear or fuzzy? And crucially, where has learning stopped? Where are the feedback loops broken?